Well, good morning, everybody. This is a project which has been 7 years in the making, and we now have 59 days and about 8.5 hours left. Or you might want to put it in terms of we have 103 days left until the closing ceremony of the Paralympic Games. So in that window, this project happens. And it was 64 years ago we last had the Olympics. So when people say this is a once-in-a-lifetime experience, it really is. And I think for us, it's seizing this opportunity to drive some change for sustainability that's really, really so important. When we were bidding back in 2003, 2005, when we won the bid, we set out a vision about not just hosting the world's greatest sporting event, but also delivering it as sustainably as possible. And for us, that meant that no game should pass through a host city without leaving a lasting impression. The focus, obviously, for London 2012 has been the regeneration of a large tract of basically derelict land in East London around Stratford, the 250-hectare site, which is equivalent of Hyde Park and Kensington Gardens all in one, and it was basically broken down, inaccessible, polluted, contaminated, and needed a lot of attention. The focus and the immovable deadline of the Games gave us the opportunity to put in new infrastructure, transport, utilities, energy, the new state-of-the-art venues, create new parklands, reprofile the rivers and clean up the land. And not only creating new parklands which are great for wildlife, but at the same time, they are providing flood mitigation for several thousand properties in the local area. So a lot of effort gone into long-term development and regeneration of the site. But it's also an opportunity to influence lasting behaviour change and the way we go about and do things. And the scale of this is something that really makes this, I think, quite exceptional. If you think that we have over 205 countries competing in the Games, that's more than there are members of the United Nations. We have 10,500 Olympic athletes coming for the Games, and they're outnumbered 2 to 1 by media. The workforce is altogether about 200,000. There's staff, there's 70,000 volunteers, and about 120,000 contractors doing transport, catering, security, cleaning, and so on. And across all that, we have to serve 14 million meals. So to do all that as sustainably as possible is quite a big ask. And I think it's a one-off opportunity for us to display leadership on sustainability from a UK perspective. It's also an opportunity to reach vast numbers of people that would not normally be touched by this. Well, the Olympic opening ceremony is probably the most watched televised event in the world. So there's no pressure on us, is there then? And we believe that the values of sport are a great way of connecting people with promoting sustainable behaviour. So all this meant a lot of challenging assumptions, trying out new ideas, making informed choices. And by no means have we made all the right choices all the time, but it's by understanding the process, by putting sustainability as a core thing from the outset, we've given ourselves the opportunity to choose and to learn from those mistakes and hopefully and pass things on in a good way. So the sum total of our effort will be about choices. And one of the things I think is quite fascinating about this project, which is so different from most companies and other normal organisations, we literally started from scratch, or as perhaps John would like to say, started from zero. 7 years ago, we did not exist. There was no organisation. So we came with the advantage of no baggage. Nobody saying, oh, we have a process here, you can't do this, you can't do that. It was very much a clean sheet of paper. But also, we started from the point of view of novices. But we had a very comprehensive sustainability vision, an aspiration, as Kelly referred to in her opening remarks, that gave us the platform, the mandate in which to deliver this programme. And by starting from day one, by having a sustainability team, professional team in place from the very outset, which is something that no previous Games has done, that placed it centre to the culture of the organisation and has allowed us to develop things in a much more integrated way. So I think those are really sort of key ingredients to put in context how we've approached this. There was a lot of stakeholder engagement, really important that we do that. But we've also found there was no management system standards or normal general approach for how you go about major events. So working with British Standards Institute and other experts, the British Standard 8901 was established in 2007 and updated in 2009. And next month, it will become ISO 2012-1. So it will be an international management system standard for events as a direct legacy of the London 2012 programme. Reporting is something that events have not been very good at. So we worked with a global reporting initiative on an event organizer sector supplement, which was published back in January this year. Again, that's a sort of a global legacy. So we've got management system, we've got reporting, and we've also got an independent assurance body looking at our sustainability program, not just of the organizing committee, but of the whole 2012 program. All of those are innovations which we've been allowed to do. We've had the license to operate and put that in place from the outset. And that has led on to us managing a number of things. We've developed a carbon footprint methodology, turning it around from a reporting structure to something looking at the potential impact of the games and where we should prioritize our efforts. That gave us a focus on temporary materials. Being a short-term one-off event is very different from building something for the long term or for sort of continual improvement. You'll have to look at materials and resources in a very different way and a big focus on what happens to them afterwards. So we developed temporary material guidelines. We have a very big focus on zero waste to landfills, one of our key commitments from the bid. And it sounds easy to say, but it's actually really hard to do when you look at all the different materials that are going to become potential waste and how do we tackle those. And one of the other exciting things was the food vision. Those 14 million meals, how could we source those sustainably and do that in a very effective way? So key to all this really was a sustainable sourcing code, which we introduced at the very beginning and was contractual, not just for our suppliers, but also our sponsors and our licensees. And what I'd like to do is just give you a couple of examples of some of the changes driven through that. Start with mattresses. We have 17,500 bed spaces in the Olympic Village. And interestingly, 6,300 mattress extensions were needed for those. So that's an awful lot of tall basketball players. But our supplier was looking very much at reuse options, but rather than neglect the domestic market. So we said, no, hang on, we don't want you to source them from China. Go back out, use Compete For system, and find a UK supplier that can do all this. So we did eventually find a UK supplier for mattresses, which was great. And working very closely with them, with the Ramler, who are the organisation providing the furniture, fittings and equipment for the villages, looked at after use. Because typically no one's really looked at what happens to mattresses afterwards. But you've got nearly 20,000 generally good condition mattresses. You've got to find proper reuse for them. So looking at student accommodation, other events, open market, all sorts of things. Just try and make sure that none of that goes to landfill. And if there is any spoilage, we've got a system at Milton Keynes as a recycling processing centre which will take all these, and so the steel gets recycled locally, the plastic and the foam filling gets turned into different materials. There's fibre goes into compost and the remaining bits go into energy recovery. So all in all, through partnership with the suppliers, we've actually driven a lot of change there and saved a bit of carbon. The other one to mention finally is Coca-Cola, who have been a sponsor since 1928. But they've come to the London Games with another fresh look at sustainability. They've really bought into the vision that we've had. And one of the investments they've made was very significant. And then a few weeks ago, opening a new recycling plant in Lincolnshire, which is going to take all the PET bottles and drinking ware from the games, and obviously from around the country. And that'll be reprocessed into food-grade PET that goes back into the system. So technically speaking, you could have a bottle from the opening ceremony reprocessed and become a bottle again for the closing ceremony of the Paralympics in a 6-week cycle. And Coca-Cola have done an awful lot to work with us on that zero-waste vision. So there's many, many more examples I could give, but I think it's interesting that from the ordinary supply market through licensees and to the major sponsors, people are using this one-off occasion to drive change, and not just for us for the event, but for their wider business processes. Thousands of people have helped us on this journey, but it's very over after the Games. And what really is important now is that the wider industry takes some of the lessons and learnings from this, what was successful, what wasn't, and tries to integrate it into their own business processes. So really that, for me, in closing, is our appeal to you, that you embrace some of the changes that we've been able to drive and take those into the wider market. Thank you very much.